Ukraine and Russia share a complex and intertwined history, dating back centuries. This long and often tumultuous relationship has seen both nations evolve through various political, social, and cultural changes. This shared past is marked by periods of both cooperation and conflict, with moments of unity often overshadowed by deep-seated rivalries and disputes. These historical interactions have laid the groundwork for the current crisis, creating a backdrop of tension and unresolved issues. Understanding this intricate historical tapestry is crucial to grasping the roots of the present war. The layers of history reveal the complexities and the long-standing grievances that have fueled the conflict. A pivotal moment in this shared history was Ukraine's declaration of independence from the crumbling Soviet Union in 1991. This was a monumental step for Ukraine as it sought to establish its own identity and sovereignty. This declaration, ratified by a referendum in which the majority of Ukrainians voted for freedom, marked a turning point in relations between the two nations. It was a clear signal of Ukraine's desire to break away from Russian influence and chart its own course. Russia, however, harbored ambitions of maintaining its sphere of influence in the region. The loss of Ukraine was seen as a significant blow to its geopolitical strategy. The annexation of Crimea by Russia in 2014 marked a significant escalation of tensions. This bold move was condemned internationally and viewed as a blatant violation of Ukraine's sovereignty. This illegal seizure of Ukrainian territory, coupled with Russia's support for separatists in eastern Ukraine, ignited a simmering conflict that would have far-reaching consequences. The region of Donbas became a focal point of violent confrontations and political strife. These historical events, intertwined with issues of national identity, language, and geopolitical aspirations, created a tinderbox of tensions that ultimately erupted into open warfare in 2022. The struggle for national identity and self-determination became central to the conflict. The current conflict is deeply rooted in this complex history, making a peaceful resolution all the more challenging. The path to peace is fraught with obstacles, as both sides grapple with the legacies of their shared past and the realities of their present. In February 2022, Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine, marking a dramatic escalation of the ongoing conflict. This unprovoked act of aggression sent shockwaves across the globe, shattering the fragile peace in Europe and ushering in a new era of geopolitical uncertainty. The invasion, met with fierce resistance from Ukrainian forces and widespread international condemnation, has resulted in a brutal and bloody conflict. Ukrainian troops, bolstered by Western military aid, have mounted a staunch defense, defying many initial predictions of a swift Russian victory. Despite facing a numerically superior and better-equipped adversary, Ukrainian soldiers and civilian volunteers have demonstrated remarkable resilience and determination. Their courageous defense of their homeland has inspired the world, becoming a symbol of resistance against tyranny. The conflict has evolved into a war of attrition, with heavy fighting concentrated in eastern and southern Ukraine. The outcome of this war remains uncertain, but one thing is clear: the invasion has already had a profound impact on Ukraine, Europe, and the world. Since the outbreak of the war, diplomatic efforts to find a peaceful resolution to the conflict have been relentless, but ultimately unsuccessful. World leaders, international organizations, and various actors have engaged in shuttle diplomacy, seeking to bridge the divide between the warring parties. Despite these efforts, negotiations have stalled, hampered by deep mistrust and seemingly irreconcilable demands. Russia, facing mounting international pressure and battlefield setbacks, has shown little willingness to engage in good faith negotiations. The international community remains divided on the best approach to ending the conflict. Some advocate for increased military support to Ukraine, believing that a stronger Ukrainian military position is essential for meaningful negotiations. Others prioritize diplomatic solutions, fearing that escalating military aid could prolong the war and increase the risk of wider conflict. The lack of a clear diplomatic breakthrough has left the world grappling with the prospect of a protracted and increasingly brutal conflict. The absence of a viable path to peace underscores the urgency of finding creative diplomatic solutions and fostering a genuine commitment to dialogue. Section 4. A world in turmoil, global repercussions of the war. The war in Ukraine has reverberated far beyond the borders of the two warring nations, sending shockwaves through the global economy, energy markets and geopolitical landscape. The conflict has not only affected the immediate region, but has also had a cascading effect on various sectors worldwide. The conflict has exposed vulnerabilities in the globalized world, highlighting the interconnectedness of nations and the ripple effects of conflict. The war has underscored how deeply intertwined our economies and societies are, making it clear that a disturbance in one part of the world can have far-reaching consequences. One of the most immediate and significant impacts of the war has been the disruption of global supply chains. Factories have halted production and shipping routes have been rerouted or blocked, causing delays and shortages in goods that are essential for daily life and business operations. Ukraine, a major agricultural exporter, has seen its production and exports severely hampered by the conflict, leading to food shortages and price spikes worldwide. The war has disrupted the planting and harvesting seasons, affecting not just Ukraine, but also countries that rely on its agricultural products. The war has also exacerbated existing energy crises, particularly in Europe, which heavily relied on Russian oil and gas. The conflict has forced many European nations to scramble for alternative energy sources, leading to increased energy costs and even blackouts in some areas. The sanctions imposed on Russia, while aimed at crippling its war machine, have also had unintended consequences for global energy markets, driving up prices and forcing nations to seek alternative energy sources. This has accelerated the push towards renewable energy, but the transition has been fraught with challenges and high costs. The conflict has also deepened geopolitical divisions, particularly between Russia and the West. Diplomatic relations have soured, and international summits have become arenas for heated debates and confrontations. The unprecedented sanctions imposed on Russia, coupled with the West's unwavering support for Ukraine, have pushed Russia closer to China and other nations critical of the Western-led world order. This realignment has the potential to reshape global alliances and power structures in the years to come, making the world a more unpredictable and volatile place. Section 5. The human toll. A growing humanitarian crisis. The war in Ukraine has unleashed a catastrophic humanitarian crisis, leaving millions displaced, wounded, and in desperate need of assistance. Families have been torn apart, homes destroyed, and communities shattered by the relentless conflict. The conflict's impact on civilian populations has been particularly devastating as they bear the brunt of the violence, displacement, and destruction. Innocent lives are caught in the crossfire, with many losing loved ones and their sense of security. The United Nations estimates that over 14 million Ukrainians have been displaced from their homes, both internally and as refugees in neighboring countries. This staggering number reflects the widespread chaos and instability caused by the ongoing war. This mass exodus of refugees fleeing the horrors of war has strained the resources of host countries and presented a significant humanitarian challenge. Host nations are struggling to provide adequate shelter, food and medical care to the influx of displaced individuals. The war has also had a profound impact on Ukraine's infrastructure, with hospitals, schools and critical civilian infrastructure targeted and destroyed. The loss of these essential services has left many without access to healthcare, education and basic necessities. This destruction has further exacerbated the humanitarian crisis, limiting access to essential services and hindering recovery efforts. The rebuilding process will be long and arduous, requiring substantial international support and resources. The international community has responded with significant humanitarian aid, providing food, shelter, medical care, and other forms of assistance to those affected by the conflict. Aid organizations are working tirelessly to alleviate the suffering and meet the urgent needs of the displaced population. However, the scale of the crisis is immense, and the needs continue to outstrip the available resources, highlighting the need for sustained international support. The world must come together to ensure that the people of Ukraine receive the help they desperately need to survive and rebuild their lives. Section 6. Charting the unknown, uncertain futures and global implications. As the war in Ukraine grinds on, the future remains shrouded in uncertainty. The conflict's trajectory will likely depend on a complex interplay of factors, including battlefield dynamics, diplomatic breakthroughs, and the evolving geopolitical landscape. One possible scenario is a protracted war of attrition, with neither side able to achieve a decisive military victory. This scenario would result in continued bloodshed, suffering, and instability, with devastating consequences for Ukraine and the wider international community. Another possibility is a negotiated settlement, however unlikely it may seem at present. Such a settlement would require significant concessions from both sides and a willingness to compromise on core interests, something that has proven elusive thus far. Regardless of how the conflict unfolds, its long-term implications for the international order are likely to be profound. The war has already tested the limits of international cooperation, exposed vulnerabilities in the global security architecture, and raised fundamental questions about the future of globalization and the rules-based international order.